My stepmother tried to erase my mother's memory from our house, so I erased her from our lives. I was 17 when I came home from school to find my mother's favorite painting missing from the living room wall. The one she had bought during our last vacation together before the cancer took her. My stepmother was standing there with a cloth, wiping away the dust outline where it had hung for 3 years since Mom passed. She looked at me with this fake sympathetic smile and said she thought it was time to redecorate. Time to move forward. Time to make the house feel more like home for everyone. That painting had been my anchor through the worst period of my life. Every morning I would look at it and remember Mom's laugh when she found it at that little gallery by the beach. She had been so weak from treatment, but her eyes lit up when she saw those vibrant colors. We spent her last good day hanging it in just the right spot where the afternoon light would hit it perfectly. Now it was gone, wrapped in newspaper in the garage like trash. My father worked long hours and traveled frequently for business, which left me alone with her most evenings. She had moved in just 6 months after Mom died, bringing her own furniture and her own ideas about how our house should look. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying to help Dad heal. But as weeks turned into months, I realized she was systematically removing every trace of my mother from what had been our sanctuary. The photo albums disappeared from the coffee table. Mom's books vanished from the shelves. Her gardening tools were donated without anyone asking me. The throw pillows she had lovingly arranged on the couch were replaced with ones that matched the new color scheme. Even her favorite coffee mug, the one with the chip on the handle that she refused to throw away, somehow found its way to the donation pile. I started taking pictures of everything before it could disappear. Using my phone, I documented Mom's handwriting on recipe cards, her notes in the margins of books, even the small dent in the kitchen wall where she had accidentally bumped it with a chair. I uploaded everything to a private cloud storage account, creating a digital museum of memories that nobody could take from me. The changes were subtle at first, designed to look like natural home improvements. She would rearrange furniture and casually mention that some pieces looked outdated. She started bringing flowers from her own garden, gradually replacing the varieties Mom had carefully selected and planted. The kitchen spice rack was reorganized, with Mom's handwritten labels replaced by uniform printed ones. But then I discovered something that made my blood run cold. My stepmother had been going through Mom's personal things that Dad had packed away in boxes in the attic. She had been throwing away letters, photographs, and mementos when she thought nobody was looking. I found some of them in the trash, water-damaged and torn, including a love letter my father had written to Mom during their courtship. The breaking point came when I found her in my room, going through my dresser drawers. She was holding Mom's necklace, the one with the small diamond that had been my grandmother's. She claimed she was just tidying up, but I knew better. She had been searching for anything that connected me to my mother, anything that proved Mom had existed in this house, in our lives. I confronted her that evening, when Dad was away on another business trip. I told her I knew what she was doing, that I had evidence of her throwing away Mom's things. She denied it at first, then got angry, saying I was living in the past and preventing the family from moving forward. She said Dad needed to heal, that surrounding himself with reminders of his dead wife was unhealthy for everyone. Her mask slipped that night, revealing someone calculating and cruel beneath the caring facade. She told me that Dad had chosen her, that she was his future, and that clinging to a dead woman's memory was pathetic. She said I needed to accept that Mom was gone and would never be coming back, that the sooner I stopped living in the past, the better off everyone would be. That night, I called my aunt, Mom's younger sister, and told her everything. She lived 2 states away, but had always been close to our family. She was horrified when I described what had been happening. She had wondered why Dad seemed so different during their recent phone calls, why he rarely mentioned Mom anymore. I sent her some of the photos I had taken, and she immediately started making plans to visit. While waiting for my aunt to arrive, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I created fake social media profiles and started researching my stepmother's background. What I found was disturbing. She had been married 3 times before, always to widowers with children. Each marriage had ended badly, with accusations of manipulation and emotional abuse toward the children. I found blog posts and forum discussions where her former stepchildren had shared their experiences. They described the same pattern of behavior: the gradual erasure of their mother's memory, the isolation from extended family, the gaslighting when they tried to speak up. One girl, now in her 20s, wrote about how she had lost all physical reminders of her mother because her stepmother had systematically destroyed them. When my aunt arrived that weekend, she brought reinforcements. Two of Mom's closest friends came with her, women who had been like second mothers to me growing up. They had been worried about me, but hadn't wanted to interfere in Dad's new relationship. Now they realized their silence had been a mistake. The confrontation was intense but controlled. My aunt calmly presented the evidence, while Mom's friends shared their own concerns about how quickly Mom's memory was being erased. My stepmother tried to defend herself, claiming she was only trying to help everyone heal and move forward. But when Dad saw the photos of Mom's things in the trash, including that love letter, his face changed completely. Dad had been so consumed with his own grief and guilt about moving on that he hadn't noticed what was happening around him. He thought he was protecting me by trying to create a normal home environment, but he had been blind to how his new wife was systematically destroying the connection I had to my mother. The realization hit him like a physical blow. My stepmother became desperate when she realized she was losing control. She started crying, claiming that everyone was ganging up on her, that she had only been trying to help create a fresh start for the family. She said I was a difficult teenager who resented her for trying to fill my mother's shoes, that I had been making her life miserable from the beginning. But my aunt had brought something that changed everything. She had been going through her own photos and found pictures from family gatherings where my stepmother's behavior was clearly documented. In one photo, she was visibly rolling her eyes while I was talking about Mom. In another, she was putting her arm around Dad while pointedly turning away from a family portrait that included Mom. The next few days were a whirlwind of difficult conversations and painful realizations. Dad admitted he had been avoiding anything that reminded him of Mom because the pain was still too intense. He thought moving forward meant leaving the past behind, but he hadn't considered that for me. Those memories weren't painful reminders of loss. They were precious connections to the woman who had shaped my entire world. I also learned that my stepmother had been interfering with my relationships outside the house. She had been intercepting phone calls from Mom's friends, telling them I was doing fine and didn't need their concern. She had discouraged Dad from letting me visit my grandparents, claiming it would be too emotional for me. She had even contacted my school counselor, suggesting I might benefit from less contact with people who reminded me of my mother. My stepmother packed her bags within a week. She tried to convince Dad that I was being manipulative, that I was using my grief to control the household. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Dad had finally seen her true nature. She had never wanted to be my stepmother. She had wanted to replace my mother entirely, erasing her from our lives so completely that it would be as if she had never existed. Before she left, she made one last attempt to maintain control. She claimed that half the household items were hers, including some of Mom's things that she had integrated into her own possessions. She tried to take Mom's china set, saying it matched her dining room decor. She even attempted to claim ownership of some of Mom's jewelry, saying Dad had given it to her as gifts. After she left, Dad and I spent weeks going through storage boxes and retrieving what we could. My aunt helped us restore some of Mom's things to their proper places. We found the painting in the garage, thankfully undamaged, and rehung it in the living room where it belonged. The house slowly began to feel like home again, a place where Mom's memory was honored rather than hidden. The legal process was messy. She tried to claim rights to some of Dad's assets, arguing that she had contributed to the household and deserved compensation. But her systematic destruction of Mom's belongings, which I had documented thoroughly, worked against her in court. The judge was not sympathetic to someone who had deliberately caused emotional harm to a grieving child. During the legal proceedings, more disturbing information came to light. She had been secretly recording conversations in our house, trying to gather evidence that I was an unstable teenager who needed psychiatric help. She had been planning to use these recordings to convince Dad that I was the problem, that my attachment to Mom's memory was unhealthy and needed professional intervention. I learned that she had done this before. Through social media and public records, I discovered she had been married twice previously, both times to widowers with children. In both cases, the marriages had ended badly, with accusations of her trying to erase the memory of the deceased wives. She had a pattern of targeting vulnerable men and then systematically removing any trace of their previous lives. The most shocking discovery came when I found her online dating profile, which was still active even during her marriage to Dad. She specifically targeted recent widowers, presenting herself as someone who understood grief and could help them move forward. She had screenshots of conversations with multiple men, all of whom had young children and were struggling with loss. Her dating profile was carefully crafted to appeal to grieving fathers. She described herself as someone who believed in fresh starts and new beginnings, who could help heal a broken family. She had photos of herself with children from previous relationships, making herself appear to be a natural mother figure. The manipulation was calculated and predatory. I created a detailed document outlining everything she had done, complete with photos, dates, and evidence of her pattern of behavior. I shared it with the other families she had targeted, giving them the information they needed to protect themselves. Some of them had been wondering why their own children seemed so unhappy, why family heirlooms kept disappearing, why their deceased wives seemed to be fading from their homes. The ripple effects were significant. One of the men she had been courting online contacted me directly, thanking me for saving his family from what could have been a devastating situation. He had been planning to propose, thinking she was the answer to his prayers. Instead, he realized she would have destroyed his children's connection to their mother, just as she had tried to destroy mine. Another father reached out to tell me that his teenage daughter had been acting out for months, and he had been considering sending her to boarding school because of behavior problems. After reading my documentation, he realized that his new wife had been systematically undermining his daughter's self-esteem and connection to her deceased mother. The girl's behavior improved dramatically once they addressed the real problem. My father struggled with guilt and shame about his choices. He had been so desperate to find stability and normalcy that he had ignored red flags and dismissed my concerns. He started going to support groups for widowed parents, learning healthier ways to process grief while still honoring Mom's memory. He also began including me in major decisions about our household, recognizing that I had valuable insights he had been overlooking. The experience taught me that grief doesn't follow a timeline, and healing doesn't require forgetting. Mom's memory didn't need to be erased for Dad to be happy again. In fact, the opposite was true. By trying to pretend she had never existed, we had all been living in a state of suspended animation, afraid to acknowledge the love and joy she had brought to our lives. I also learned the power of documentation and speaking up when something feels wrong. My instinct to photograph everything before it disappeared had been the key to exposing what was happening. If I had remained silent, if I had accepted the gaslighting and manipulation, Mom's memory would have been completely erased from our home, and I would have lost the last tangible connections to the woman who had given me life. The house feels different now, but in a good way. We have family dinners where we share stories about Mom, remembering her quirks and her wisdom. Dad has started cooking some of her favorite recipes, and we keep her photo on the mantle where everyone can see it. Her garden has been restored, and I tend to it the way she taught me, feeling connected to her through the soil and the growing things. I discovered that my stepmother had been keeping a journal during her time with us, documenting her progress in what she called her project of helping us move forward. The entries were chilling, describing Mom as an obstacle to the family's happiness and detailing strategies for gradually removing her presence from our lives. She had been methodical and deliberate in her actions, treating the erasure of my mother's memory like a business plan. I still have nightmares, sometimes about coming home to find more of Mom's things missing. But I also have dreams where she's proud of me for standing up for her memory, for refusing to let someone erase the evidence of her love. She would have wanted me to be strong, to protect the family she had built, to ensure that her legacy lived on in the values she had instilled in me. My stepmother tried to contact me once through social media, claiming she had been misunderstood and that her intentions had been good. She said she hoped someday I would understand that she had only been trying to help everyone heal. But I blocked her immediately, recognizing the manipulation tactics she had used so effectively on Dad. Some people don't deserve second chances, especially when they have shown a pattern of causing deliberate harm to grieving families. The experience also brought me closer to Mom's side of the family. My aunt visits more frequently now, and I spend summers with her, learning family history and keeping alive traditions that might otherwise have been lost. Mom's friends have become like surrogate mothers, checking in on me regularly and sharing stories about Mom's younger days that I had never heard before. Through these connections, I learned things about Mom that I had never known. She had kept a diary during her illness, writing letters to me for future milestones like graduation, marriage, and motherhood. My stepmother had found these letters and hidden them, planning to destroy them eventually. We recovered them from her belongings, and reading them felt like receiving messages from beyond the grave. I'm in college now, studying social work with a focus on family counseling. I want to help other families navigate grief and loss in healthy ways, to prevent the kind of manipulation and erasure that nearly destroyed my connection to my mother. I've spoken at support groups about red flags to watch for when dating as a widowed parent, helping others recognize the signs of predatory behavior. The house where I grew up is now a true home again, filled with love and memory rather than fear and concealment. Dad has learned to honor Mom's memory while still being open to the possibility of love again. But now, he knows the difference between someone who will cherish his past and someone who will try to erase it. We both understand that healing doesn't require forgetting, and that love doesn't diminish when it's shared with memory. I started a blog to share my experience and help other families going through similar situations. The response has been overwhelming, with dozens of people reaching out to share their own stories of memory erasure and manipulation. Many of them are adults who lost their connection to deceased parents because of predatory stepparents, and they're now working to reclaim those memories and relationships. My stepmother's former stepchildren found my blog and contacted me directly. We formed a support network, sharing resources and strategies for healing from the trauma of having our parents' memory systematically erased. Some of them are now working to restore relationships with their deceased parents' family members, reconnecting with people who had been cut off during their stepmother's reign of control. The legal case eventually expanded beyond just our family. My stepmother was investigated for fraud after it was discovered that she had been stealing from previous husbands, including taking valuable items that belonged to their deceased wives. She had built a network of online personas to target grieving widowers, and law enforcement was able to trace her activities across multiple states. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been brave enough to speak up, if I had accepted the slow erosion of Mom's presence in our lives. But then I look at her painting, hanging in its rightful place where the light hits it just right, and I know that some things are worth fighting for, even when the battle seems impossible to win. The experience taught me that protecting the people we love doesn't end when they die. Their memory, their legacy, their impact on our lives continues to need defending against those who would try to erase them for their own selfish purposes. Mom couldn't protect herself anymore, but I could protect her memory, and in doing so, I protected the part of myself that she had helped create. I keep in touch with the families my stepmother targeted, providing support and resources as they work to rebuild their connections to their deceased loved ones. Together, we've created a network of survivors who understand the unique trauma of having someone systematically erase a parent's memory, while gaslighting us into believing it was for our own good. Dad and I have rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. He includes me in decisions about the house, about family traditions, about how we honor Mom's memory. He's learned to recognize the signs of manipulation and has developed strong boundaries about what he will and won't accept in future relationships. The house that almost lost its heart has become a sanctuary again, a place where Mom's love continues to live through the memories we share and the traditions we maintain. Her garden blooms every spring, her recipes feed our family and friends, and her values guide the choices we make every day. My stepmother tried to erase my mother's memory from our house, but instead, she strengthened it. In fighting to protect Mom's legacy, I learned how powerful love can be, even after death. I learned that some bonds are too strong to be broken by manipulation, fear, or cruelty. Most importantly, I learned that I am my mother's daughter, and that's something no one can ever take away from me.